I'm about to start working on part 2 of the $2 boat purchase. Fixed up the motor, and now I'm going to start working on this trailer. So I got the axle off and brought it in the garage so that I can work on it. It was just held on, had a bolt that went through here and here, so just two bolts that held it on. This slid into a shackle or whatever you want to call it that's on the back side of it. I'm going to take the wheels off and then I'll take the hubs off. Alright, so each one of these hubs is held on with a castle nut and then a cotter pin to lock the castle nut spot in place. So the hub will just pull, once you get the castle nut off, the hub just pulls right off. Inside of here, there's a bearing that goes up front here. We'll check that, maybe repack it. And then there's a bearing in here also. We'll make sure both of these are good. If they are, then we can just repack this and keep her moving. Got both the hubs off, and one of the first things I noticed, and I'll show you, is that the seals, so this is the rear of the hub, that's the front. I've already pulled the bearing out of there, but this is what goes up onto the axle. So goes on like this, and if you'll see all that gap back there shouldn't be there. So this rear seal back here should sit directly on this lip right here, and that's what keeps the grease from being pushed all the way out of the hub, and also keeps water from getting into the hub. So at some point somebody changed the bearings, or at least the seals on here, most likely the bearings also, and they put the wrong size seals on there, which is why all the grease that's in here is just hard as a rock. Looks like it's had water in there. So we'll get all that grease out of there, clean that stuff out. The bearings, as far as I can tell, are in good shape, but the seals are going to have to be replaced. That's also why there's all this is all crusty, dried up grease that's on the back of the hub here. So I got to clean all that off. We'll push those seals out and take some measurements to figure out what size seals we need to get. Alright, so we got this thing apart. We got the bearings out. I was able to get this rear seal out so that I could get access to the bearing. Like I said, the bearings actually feel okay, but unfortunately these races, this is what the bearing sits on. The race has obvious pitting in it. I don't know if you can see it in the camera. With these black marks here, pitting, you can feel that too. And that'll end up eating up the bearings. So I'm going to go ahead and just order new bearings, new races, new seals for this hub. For both hubs. I'm sure the other one's the same way. Since that seal was never the proper size, I'm sure it just had water sitting in here the whole time, and that's what caused all this pitting. All right, so now that the axle is painted, as well as the springs, we're going to move on to the next thing, which is, that would be the bunks. So we've got two 8-foot 2x4s right here, not pressure treated, just regular 2x4 that we're going to use for the bunks. I don't use pressure treated wood because some of the pressure treated wood comes with copper infused in it. Copper tends to react with the aluminum and cause oxidation, and we don't want that. So I use regular 2x4s, and what I do is I throw some of this right here, spar urethane. I put a couple, 2-3 coats of spar urethane on there. This is clear satin, doesn't matter what the finish is as long as it's spar urethane. Put a couple on there, it will make it waterproof, and then I'll put the carpet on after that. So we got 2 coats on the bunks out there, that's drying. While that was drying, we had Amazon drop off a package that had 4 of these bearings that we need for here, as well as the oil seals. So we'll go ahead and pack these bearings, put them back on the hubs, and put the hubs back on the axle since the axle is dry from yesterday. All right, so rear grease seals are in. We're gonna fill these hubs up with as much grease as we can before we put them on the axles. And then we'll put the generic bearing buddies back on that we have rebuilt, and we'll be good to go. We'll, grease them up, pack them as much as we can, and keep them moving. So with the axle and the trailer jack replaced in good working order, I got this thing into the garage that is already messy. Right now, I think I just need to tear down what's left of the hardware that I'm not going to reuse and get the old lights and wiring off. Going to replace all the wiring. I've got some new lights, and Once I get that stuff on, I will go ahead and throw the bunks on. So I thought about this for a while before I made the decision, but I'm going to take this walkway off of this trailer for really two reasons. One, because, and this is kind of the main reason, because it's going to get in the way of where I want to put the hardware for the bunks. And two, because I might put it on my personal trailer. So we've got a new harness here. I'm going to run this from up front to the back, cut everything to lengthen the wire up the lights that we have also. So I'm testing out this new portable soldering iron to see how well it works. It'll be nice to not have to plug anything in. If it works right, we'll see. I like to solder and heat shrink all my connections. Is it the best? I don't know. That's what I do. So I used to not do this, and I would just use little crimp connectors, and those always ended up failing. I do have better success so far using this technique. See if this thing is actually hot. Oh yeah, it's hot. So when I'm soldering, the goal is actually to heat up the wire, not the solder itself. Heat up the wire and then let the wire itself melt the solder, and it'll suck it in to all the void spaces in there. Otherwise, if you're just heating up the solder and not the wire itself, when you melt the solder onto the wire, it won't suck it into the inside the wire.
All right, we got the bunks all done with the spar urethane, so now we are going to glue on and staple on some carpet.
So based on the length of the trailer, I determined that at most this thing can fit a 14-foot boat, John boat, whatever. It had on a tri-hull originally, but it's not many of those out there. So I figure a 14-foot John boat would probably be the longest thing you would put on here. And based on that, I think most of those run either 36 inches wide at the bottom on the back or 42. I know every now and then you'll get one that's like extra wide and it might be 48, but it's a lot less common. So I'm going to put the bunks 26 inches apart, and I think that'll accommodate the biggest range of sizes. If anybody needs to, this is going to be temporary, so they can actually adjust them All right, so we got everything together on this thing, and it's pretty much done. So in total, we removed the old wiring and put complete new wiring on it, new lights, rebuilt the hubs, so it's got new bearings, new seals, knocked the rust off of the axle and the springs, and put some paint on there just to keep it from rusting out in the future. New bunks on here. These are 8-foot bunks. Probably could have used, wouldn't have hurt to put 10-foot bunks on it, but the 8 ones will be fine. This trailer will hold up to a 14-foot boat. It's got a new to it trailer jack. It's actually from my boat that I use, so I put the new one on my boat, put this one on here. And that's pretty much it. So I'm going to move it outside back into the driveway and test the lights out on it, and then I'll be getting rid of it. I was originally going to keep it and throw my own 14-foot boat on here, but I've since changed my mind.